بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to today's broadcast, which is going to differentiate between Islamic Jihad and the terrorist Jihad, or Jihad in Islam, and what is not in Islam. Now, the Arabic language is a root-based language, and the word jihad, its root is Jim Ha Dal, and it occurs in the Holy Quran 41 times. Today we are going to concentrate on use of the word jihad. We are not going to talk about fighting, the word for which is qital. Now, jihad, Jim Ha Dal, is used in the Holy Quran 41 times, and 27 times as the verb jahada, 4 times as the noun jihad, once as the noun juhud, 5 times as the verbal noun jihad, and 4 times as the active participle mujahideen. To give you one example, وَالَّذِينَ هَاجَرُوا وَجَاهَدُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أُولَٰئِكَ يَرْجُونَ رَحْمَةَ اللَّهِ. Chapter 2, verse 218. And here it's translated as strive hard in Allah's way. And that's the to strive, to struggle. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَهَاجَرُوا وَجَاهَدُوا بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَالَّذِينَ أَوَوا وَنَصَرُوا أُولَٰئِكَ بَعْضُهُمْ أُولَٰئِكَ بَعْضٌ. And strive hard with what? بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ, with your possessions and your property. And the point I'm making is that jihad doesn't just mean fighting, or it's misconstrued both by Muslims and non-Muslims to mean fighting. Because how would you fight with your bi'amwalihim? What do I do? Take my wallet out and throw my wallet at the enemy, or take the change in my pocket out and start throwing pound coins at people? I'm sure many people would be very happy if I conducted a jihad in that manner. And there are many other verses, again, as a noun, chapter 9, verse 24, it's used as striving, struggling. وَرَسُولِهِ وَجِهَادٍ فِي سَبِيلِهِ فَتَرَبَّصُوا. Strive, struggle. And so it goes on. And the word mujahid is for the people who conduct jihad. فَضَلَ اللَّهُ الْمُجَاهِدِينَ بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ. Those who strive hard. Mujahideen, those who strive hard with their property and their persons. But one thing I want to concentrate on, and one thing I want to mention here, which we'll come to later, this is chapter 4, verse 95. وَفَضَّلَ اللَّهُ الْمُجَاهِدِينَ عَلَى الْقَاعِدِينَ. Here the word mujahideen is being contrasted with the word qa'ideen. Mujahideen are people who struggle and strive. They put effort into achieving something. And qaideen are those people who do not struggle or strive or put effort into achieving an objective. So you can see that if mujahideen, those who struggle and strive, is the opposite of qaideen, according to the Holy Quran itself, chapter 4, verse 95, then a mujahid is not necessarily an individual that is fighting. It may be in some certain limited circumstances. But don't take my word for it. Let's look at Lane's lexicon, which was the first English and a very authentic dictionary of the Holy Quran. And sadly, Muslims didn't have I don't know, the desire, they couldn't see the usefulness of writing a dictionary of the Holy Quran in English. And a Christian had to do that. Anyway, he says under Jahada, and its meaning, he strove, he labored, he toiled, exerted himself or his power or efforts or endeavors or ability, employed himself vigorously, strenuously, laboriously, diligently, studiously, earnestly, with energy, was diligent or studious, took pains and extraordinary pains. And then he goes on to give further details and examples from the Holy Quran to justify that. And it's interestingly, we always say this is the age of ijtihad. Ijtihad comes, I think, in 5 places in the Holy Quran. And what does it mean? It means literally it means a lawyer's exerting the faculties of the mind to the utmost for the purpose of forming an opinion in a case of law. And we always say, we need ijtihad. We need to do ijtihad. So because we are talking about the word jihad, I'm concentrating on this to show you that it doesn't just mean fighting. And the words derived from that don't just mean fighting. It is, that was Lane's lexicon, and you might object and you say, oh, well, he's a Christian and this and that and so on. Scholarship is scholarship. Newton's laws of motion are the same, whether you're a Muslim or a Jew or a Buddhist or whatever you are. But anyway, just to satisfy people, let's go to Mufradat, which is an Arabic dictionary of the Holy Quran, and I'm taking this from its Urdu translation, and it says Al-Jahdu wal-Jahd. It means that it means power, strength, taking trouble, and exerting and working hard, and so on. And they quote chapter 9, verse 79, وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَجِدُونَ إِلَّا جُهْدَهُمْ. And these people have nothing more than they have earned by their hard labor, by their hard work. جُهْدَهُمْ. And this is not an anti-dictionary, this is a dictionary of the standard dictionary of the Holy Quran. وَأَقْسَمُوا بِاللَّهِ جَهْدَ أَيْمَانِهِمْ. Chapter 16, verse 38. that they swear, they take oaths to do what? That they'll do their utmost. And what's the word for that? Jahda. And again, they mention al-ijtihad and give it the same meaning as Lane's lexicon has done. And then they go on, then they explain further that to defend yourself or Islam against the enemy means that jihad is of three types. One is that you are attacked and you're defending Islam and physically fight. Secondly, a jihad against Satan. And thirdly, a jihad against your own self. That means against your own evil desires. You turn up late at the office because you overslept because the night before you were watching a late night movie. And the boss says, "Why are you late?" Most people are tempted to say, "Oh, the bus broke down or there was a traffic jam or so on." And they wouldn't say, "Well, I was watching a late night movie and I overslept." Jihad is to contain that self that is telling you to lie. And chapter 2, verse 78 says, وَجَاهِدُوا فِي اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِ. Then conduct jihad in Allah's way. Strive and struggle in Allah's way. And that includes all three types. But remember this, the jihad against the self you have to carry out every minute, every second, every day, every week, all the time. Whenever you're confronted by any situation, you need to conduct that jihad. Jihad, in the sense of fighting, you may have to conduct if you're actually physically attacked. And again, fighting your evil desires. You're holding on to someone's file and they want this, whatever it is, done urgently. And you know that if they become desperate, you can ask them for a backhander. That is jihad against Satan. And we see that these jihads, as mentioned in the Holy Quran, are not happening anywhere. And chapter 9, verse 20 gives us a bit more information on jihad in the sense of fighting. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَهَاجَرُوا بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. People who believe. That's the first thing. You believe. And then to save their lives, they had to migrate. وَهَاجَرُوا. And then having done that, they conducted a jihad. How? With their property, with their possessions, and their lives. And there is a hadith, Jahidu ahwa'akum kama tujahiduna aghda'akum, that the way you confront your enemies, the way you fight your enemies, fight your own desires with the same ferocity, in the same way. Now, you see, if you look at that, what is that saying? When you're fighting your enemy, you may be fighting with a sword. Is this hadith saying that when you fight the enemy, you fight with a sword, you stick a sword in your stomach or in your heart? Because literally the hadith says the way you conduct jihad against the enemy conduct a jihad against your own desires in the same way. This is literal. And that is the problem. That people take things out of context and literally understand, oh, Islam says go and do this and so on. No, it doesn't. You just made it up. And then there's another hadith which says, Jahidul kuffari bi aydikum wa al-sinatikum. That conduct a jihad against those who disbelieve or those who disagree with you, kuffar, with your hands and with your tongue. Now, one thing is obvious, jihad with the tongue is not going to be picking up the gun, but even jihad with the hand doesn't necessarily mean fighting. You can write a book answering an objection against the life of the Holy Prophet Muhammad or against Islam, or you can write a book about correcting the Muslim belief about jihad. But here we are talking about jihad against those who disagree, those who disbelieve. So to refute their arguments, to rebut their arguments, doesn't have to be the sword, it may be the pen. And then we have Lughat-ul-Quran, which repeats the same thing. And interestingly, makes a couple of arguments I've already made, that in the Holy Quran, MUJAHIDEEN are set against IJTIHAD, those who struggle against those who are lazy and who make excuses for not struggling and so on. But interestingly, in Lughat-ul-Quran and other dictionaries as well, I forgot to mention this, but in Lughat-ul-Quran, the author says here that if you want to learn about what it means to fight, then for fighting, for war, for battle, see the heading against Qaf, Fa, Lam. Because the word for fighting in Islam is qital. It's not jihad. So he's saying jihad does not just mean, it doesn't mean fighting war, it means struggle, striving, hard struggle, hard striving. And if you want to consider fighting, then go to another topic. Now, let's turn to Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. In his book, The British Government and Jihad, he says that page 1, he starts off by saying that because people haven't understood the philosophy of jihad, they have made many mistakes and given the opponents of Islam a weapon to attack Islam. And then he says, remember that jihad comes from juhd, which means to struggle, for strive. And it can be applied to religious wars and so on. And he also points out that the word yudh in Sanskrit probably is a corrupted form of jihad. And then he explains how fighting came about. And he says, on page 5, Muslims were painfully killed. But for a long period, stretching over 13 years, this merciless killing carried on. But those loyal servants of Allah were cut to pieces and the orphans and weak women were sacrificed in the streets. But these righteous ones did not reply. That is, did not fight back. Until it says that God gave them permission to fight. And then he quotes the verse of the Holy Quran, chapter 39, verse 22. God has heard the cry of the people who were unjustly killed and who were unjustly forced to leave their homes. God has listened to their lament. God has listened to their prayers. And he has allowed them to fight. He has allowed them to defend themselves. And God is the most powerful, and he helps the oppressed, etc. Now, this lays down three conditions. Those people who were persecuted and who were killed and who were forced out of their homes, God has heard their lament. God has heard their prayer and allowed them to defend themselves. Where does it say that you just take up the sword and say to someone, recite the kalima or I'm going to cut the head off? There's no mention of that. Elsewhere in the Holy Quran, I didn't make a note of this, but it is said that there are times when persecution, or putting up with persecution, is worse than slaughter. But Hazrat Sahib makes a very important point, which was true and correct at his time, and which is true and correct now. And he says, at this point, it is with sadness that I have to write that ignorant Maulanas have kept hidden from the ordinary public the real nature of jihad and taught ordinary man that it means to plunder and kill people. And this is what jihad is. On the other hand, the Christian preachers did the same thing, said the same thing. So can you imagine that? That the Christians are propagating that jihad means to plunder and to kill people and to rape women. And the Christians printed thousands of pamphlets and magazines in Urdu and Pashto and other languages and distributed them throughout India and Punjab and the frontier areas, that Islam was spread by sword in this manner. And the name of Islam means to wield the sword. What convinced people were these two witnesses. One was their own religious Maulvis, scholars, and the other Christian missionaries. And then their animal anger boiled over, etc., etc. Now, isn't the same thing happening now? That was happening at time of the promised Messiah, alayhi salam. Isn't exactly the same thing happening? There's one group of Muslims that is saying jihad is to take up the sword and you go and you kill people and you make the women your slaves and so on and so forth. And who else is saying that? Non-Muslims. Non-Muslims who want to conduct propaganda against Islam are saying exactly the same thing. But I want to end by asking some questions. Number one, If jihad was, and jihad meant that the British in India should be attacked with the sword and killed and so on, why was it that none of the Muslim rulers of states conducted a jihad against the British? There was Nizam of Hyderabad, there was Nawab of Junagadh, there were many others, Muslim rulers. Why didn't they conduct a jihad? Why was it only necessary for Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad to conduct a jihad? Okay, forget about these Nawabs and Nizams and so on, because they were living under the British. Why didn't the kings of Iran and Afghanistan and other countries conduct this jihad of the sword against the British? You know, Iran and Afghanistan border India. They could have said, Muslims are living under Christian rule, we are going to free them, and attack the British. Why didn't they do that? Number 3, why did the Sunni Saudis, this is in the First World War, why did the Sunni Saudis join the Christian British to fight the Sunni Turkish Khilafat during the First World War? They sided with the British and destroyed the Turkish Khilafat. Why did they do that? Was this jihad or was this fasad? Will someone answer that? Why is it that when Muslim League, the political party that struggled for the creation of Pakistan, when it was early in the 20th century, when it was created, its constitution said 3 objectives. Number 1, to make Muslims loyal to the British. Number 2, to remove the misconception from British minds that Muslims were not their loyal subjects. And 3, to struggle for the betterment of Muslim situation and so on. Why is jihad not mentioned there? Why is jihad only mentioned when the promised Messiah's name comes up? Number 5, why is it that when Pakistan was created as an independent state, the founder of Pakistan, Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah, when he became the Governor General, he took an oath on the Holy Quran to be loyal to the British Crown and all of the king's descendants. This is a voluntary oath. Muslims, the representative of Muslims of Pakistan, is taking. Why isn't he saying we are independent now? So if the British come this way again, we are going to conduct a jihad and cut their heads off? Why is he taking an oath of loyalty to the British Crown? But mostly, if your definition of jihad is correct and you're sincere, why is it that no Muslim country has declared a jihad against Israel after seeing what's happening in Gaza and the West Bank? It's not been happening for 1 day or 1 week or 1 month. It's getting on to a year. 40,000 innocent Palestinian women and children have been killed in Gaza. I think some 18 or 20,000 of them are children, innocent children. And yet no government, Saudi government, the custodian of holy places, has not declared a jihad against Israel. The Gulf states have not declared a jihad against Israel. Most of these countries haven't, their political leaders haven't even made statements against what is going on in Palestine. The only person who's spoken out has been the president of Turkey. But my questions are can be summarized into if jihad is what you say it is, then aren't you being hypocritic by not conducting it now that Israel is attacking innocent Palestinian women and children? So obviously, jihad has two definitions: a real definition, which is the Islamic definition, and the terrorist definition or the political definition that these gentlemen use to incite Muslim public into rioting and so on. And that suits enemies of Islam because they point and they say, look, we told you, Muslims are not peaceful people. They are terrorists. They are violent people. Why are they killing all these people? Why are they blowing up Twin Towers? Why are they blowing up these buildings and bridges and so on and so forth? And this is what the Prophet Messiah said over 100 years ago, nearly 125 years ago. And non-Muslims are doing it deliberately to cast Islam in a bad light. And our political and religious leaders, particularly religious leaders, know this. But because their politics is dearer to them, they don't care about what happens to Islam or the name of Islam. I now hand over to Ahmad and see what he has to add.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, so basically today from my side I would be defining what does jihad, the concept of jihad in Islam means, and what the meaning of what is the correct meaning of jihad from Quran and Hadith. And this is indeed one of the most misunderstood concepts in Islam, that is jihad, and it is often misinterpreted as a call to violence, or like the true meaning of jihad is far from what many believe. So today we debunk all the myths and uncover the peaceful essence of jihad in Islam, rooted in self-improvement, compassion, and justice for all. So let's get started with it. And okay, so this particular video which I prepared, this will be particularly divided into 4 parts. This particular episode will be the part 1, where I'll be discussing what is jihad as per Quran and Hadith. I'll be defining the significance of jihad, the use of jihad in Quranic verses, jihad in Hadith, and then I'll also explain what are the uses of jihad by jurists. Okay, in the upcoming parts we'll be discovering like what are the circumstances under which war was permitted, and the wrong notion of jihad. Will be refuting the misinterpreted Quranic verses with the correct interpretations, and we'll also be discussing the directions related to war, like the slavery was abolished by Islam and everything regarding that. And there are also some topics which are like concerned regarding jihad, like punishment for apostasy and stuff. So we have already proved in our previous videos that there is no punishment for apostasy, and Muslims are not commanded to force non-Muslims to accept Islam. So these are already discussed in our previous episodes of Sunday discussions. Like you can see it in our channel, Islamic Institute for Lahore Ahmadiyya Movement. You can check it there. They are already like we have prepared a detailed presentation for that as well. We have allowed everything to say that, and we have explained it in detail there. But in this video, as far as this particular video is concerned, we'll be covering these 4 main chapters, that is significance of jihad, use of the word jihad in Quranic verses, jihad in Hadith, and the uses of jihad by jurists. Okay, so without any further ado, let's get started with our video. Chapter 1, the significance of jihad. Quickly I'll change this. Okay, so a very great misinterpretation prevails with the regard of jihad in Islam by assuming that the word jihad is supposed to be synonymous with war, and even the greatest research scholars in Europe have not taken the pains to consult any dictionary of Islam of the Arabic language, nor to refer to the Quran to find out the true meaning of the word. So widespread is the misunderstanding that a scholar of fame of A.J. Wensick, in his book, as you can see here, this is his book, A Handbook of Early Mohammedan Tradition, uh, when preparing his Concordance of Hadith, A Handbook of Early Mohammedan Tradition, gives not a single reference under the word jihad, not even a single reference, referring the reader to the world war as if these were two synonymous terms. Let's move a bit down. Okay, so the Encyclopedia of Islam goes even further, beginning the article on jihad by the spread of Islam by arms is a religious duty upon Muslims in general, as if jihad meant only war, but war was undertaken for the propagation of Islam. Klein, who has written the book The Religion of Islam, it makes a similar statement where he says, jihad, the fighting against unbelievers with the object of either winning them over to Islam or subduing and exterminating them in case they refuse to become Muslims, and the causing of Islam to spread and triumph over all religions is considered a sacred duty of the Muslim nation. So this is what these scholars or these writers have said. What we want to say here, what we want to make you realize about is that if any of these learned scholars had taken the trouble to consult an ordinary dictionary of Arabic language, he could never make such a glaring misstatement. The word jihad is derived from jihad or juhad, which meaning ability, exertion of, or power, and jihad and mujahida meaning the exerting of one's power in repelling the enemy. So this is the definition given by Imam Raghib in his book, which is mentioned here. Reference will be given in the description, you can check it. And Imam Raghib then also goes on to say that jihad is of three kinds: the carrying of a struggle against the visible enemy, against the devil, against the self, that is nafs. Okay, this was what is told by Imam Raghib. Okay, according to another authority, jihad means fighting with unbelievers, and that is an intensive form, mubalaga, and exerting oneself to extent of one's ability and power, whether it is by word, call, or by deed, feel. This is given by Ibn Asir in his book, which is mentioned here, An-Nihayatu fi Garib al-Haditha. That is this particular book. This will also be given in the bio, you can check it. Okay, third authority which we want to quote here is Lane's Arabic English lexicon, which has already been mentioned by Shahid Uncle as well. I would like to quote it again. So jihad in its proper form signifies the using or exerting of one's utmost power, efforts, endeavors, or ability in contending with an object of disapprobation, and this is of three kinds, namely a visible enemy, the devil, and oneself, all of which are included in the term as used in Quran verse 22 verse number 77. This is given by Lane's Arabic lexicon. Link of this will also be given in the bio. So from all our scholars, what we want to say that jihad is therefore far from being synonymous with war. Far from being synonymous with war. While the meaning of war undertaken for propagation of Islam, which is supposed by European writers to be the significance of Islam, is unknown equally to the Arabic language and the teachings of the Quran. Okay, so we'll move on to our next chapter, that is the use of the word jihad in Quranic verses. We'll now learn more about this. So two types of revelations we have, one which were revealed in Makkah, one which were revealed in Medina, right? So we'll be discussing both of them as per the scenarios which were prevalent during those eras or those times, right? So equally or even more important is the consideration of the sense in which the word is used in the Quran. It is as an admitted fact that permission to fight was given to the Muslims when they had moved to Medina, or at the earliest when they were on the eve of leaving Makkah. But the injunction relating to the jihad is contained in the earlier as well as in the later Makkah revelations, where it is said that we read chapter 29th of the Quran is one of a group which was undoubtedly revealed in the 5th and 6th years of the call of the Prophet. Yet the word jihad is freely used in the sense of exerting one's power and ability without implying any war. Very important. What is the verse? Let's look at it. So this is the verse which I'm quoting, Quran, chapter number 29, verse number 69. And those who strive hard, jahadu, this is the word for us. Uh, we shall certainly guide them in our ways, and Allah is surely with the doers of good. Okay, so what do we mean by this? The Arabic word jahadu is derived from jihad or mujahada, and the addition of fina for us, this particular word fina, which means for us, shows, if anything further is needed to show it, that the jihad in this case is the spiritual striving to attain nearness to God, and the result of this jihad is stated to be God's guidance of those striving in his ways. Okay, so another verse which we see is chapter number 29, verse number 6. The word is precisely in the same sense twice in a previous verse in the same chapter, that is, and whoever strives hard, jahada, and strives yujahidu, this one yujahidu, for himself, that is for his own benefit, for Allah is self-sufficient, above needs for all worlds. Okay, next chapter we see, in the same chapter the word is used in a sense of contention carried on in words in chapter number 29, verse number 8. And we have enjoined on man goodness to his parents, and if they content, there is also jahada, very important, if they content with thee to associate others with me, of which thou has no knowledge, obey them not. Okay, the word of jahada is also used here. So this doesn't mean that, you know, like you are like killing or doing something like that. It just simply means that if they force you, or they use their abilities, or, you know, like they exert their abilities for on you to or pressurize you to follow, or, you know, like do shirk of which you don't have any knowledge, then don't obey them. Apart from that, you have to, this is a duty upon everyone, every Muslim, that he has to do good with his parents, whether they are Muslims, whether they are non-Muslims. Okay, so in the among the later revelations may be mentioned An-Nahl, that is the 16th chapter, where it is said towards the close, what is said, that in chapter number 16, verse number 110, then surely thy Lord, with respect to those who flee after they are persecuted, then struggle hard, the word jahadu is used, and are patient, sabaru, surely thy Lord after that is protecting and merciful. There is another prevalent misconception, namely that at Makkah the Quran enjoined patience, sabr, and at Medina it enjoined jihad, as if patience and jihad were two contradictory things. The error of this view is shown by the quoted verse, since it enjoins jihad and patience in one breath, as I have showed you here. I'll show it once again, that then surely thy Lord, with respect to those who flee after they are persecuted, then struggle hard, jahadu, and are patient, sabaru. These are both, they are not any contradictory terms, they are both used in a single verse, and they are very, you know, like synonymous to each other, right? They are in context to each other. That's what I meant to say here. Another two more examples which may be quoted for the use of jihad in Makkah revelations are Quran chapter number 22, verse number 78, and strive hard, jahida, as you can see here, jahidu, for Allah with due striving, jihad. Okay, in other verse it is written that, so obey not the unbelievers and strive hard, jahid, against them with a mighty striving, jihadan, with it. Okay, where personal pronoun where the personal pronoun, it refers clearly to the Quran, as the context shows. In both these cases, the carrying on of a jihad is clearly enjoined, but in the first case it is a jihad to attain nearness to God, and in the second case it is a jihad which is to be carried out on against the unbelievers, but a jihad not of the word but of the Quran. The struggle made to attain nearness to God and to subdue one's passions, and struggle made to win over the unbelievers, not with the sword but with the Quran, is therefore a jihad in the terminology of Quran, and injunctions to carry on these two kinds of jihad were given long before the command to take up sword in self-defense. So this is what we conclude from the, you can say, the Meccan revelations. Okay, so let's now talk about what happened after the Hijrah. Okay, the Medina revelations. The struggle for national existence was forced upon the Muslims when they reached Medina, and they had to take up sword in self-defense. Very important. This struggle went and rightly under the name of jihad, but even in the Medina chapters, the word is used in wider sense of struggle carried on by words or deeds in any kind. What is written in the word? Let's check. That is Quran chapter number 9 verse number 73 and chapter 66. What is written in it? That, O Prophet, strive hard. Word jahid is used from jihad against the disbelievers and the hypocrites, and be firm against them, and their abode is hell, and evil is the destination. Here the Prophet is bidden to carry on a jihad against both the unbelievers and hypocrites. The hypocrites were those who were outwardly Muslims. Please note this. Hypocrites were those who were outwardly Muslims and lived amongst and were treated like Muslims in all respects. They came to mosque and prayed with Muslims. They even paid the zakat. A war against them was unthinkable, and none was ever undertaken. On other hand, they sometimes fought along with the Muslims against the unbelievers. Therefore, the injunction to carry on a jihad against both unbelievers and hypocrites could not mean waging of war against them. It was a jihad carried on by means of Quran, as explicitly stated in Quran chapter number 25 verse number 52, a striving hard to win over them to Islam. Okay, let's check another. In fact, on other occasions as well, it is a mistake to think that jihad means only fighting. The word is almost always used in this general sense of striving hard, including fighting where the context so requires. So this is chapter number 2 verse number 218, and also in chapter number 8 verse number 74, that those who believe and those who fled their homes and strive hard in the way of Allah. This is a description which applies as much to fighters as those who carry on struggle against unbelief and evils in other ways. And the Sabirin, those who are steadfast or patient, and the Mujahideen, those who struggle hard, are again spoken together in a Medina revelation as they are in a Makkah revelation. That is below. That, do you think you will enter the garden while Allah has not yet known those from among you who strive hard, nor known the steadfast? So this was what we get from the meaning of the Quran, like the jihad in Quran, that it is not like it's far away from the concept which is taught to people, that it's killing of people and something like that. It's nothing like that. It's just like using of the, you can say, whatever we discussed above, it totally shows that it is totally opposite of what people say and what people like misinterpret from the verses of the Quran, right? So let's now focus on what is the use of the word jihad in hadith. Okay, because after Quran we have hadith, which are the most important scriptures for us and most important source of guidance after the Quran. And let's now check what the hadith has to say for the word jihad. Okay, even in traditions, the word jihad is not exclusively used for fighting. For example, Hajj is also called a jihad. The Prophet said, the Hajj is the most excellent of all jihads. How I am saying it, you can check the reference. This is Sahih al-Bukhari, hadith number 1520. As you can see on the screen, it is narrated by Hazrat Aisha radhiyallahu anha. She said that, Allah's messenger, we consider jihad as the best deed. The Prophet said, best deed is Hajj. Okay. The next, okay. All the collections of tradition, Bukhari is the most explicit on this point. In Ihtisam bil Kitab wal Sunnah, the 4th chapter is thus headed, the saying of the Prophet, a party of my community shall not cease to be triumphant, being upholders of truth, to which are added the words, and these are the men of learning. Okay, I'll show you the reference as well, you can check it. The words of the Prophet ﷺ, a group of my ummah will continue to prevail on the basis of truth, and they will not be harmed by those who oppose them. Okay, and this is the hadith which is quoted. You can also check it. This is Sahih Muslim 1920. This is also given in Bukhari as well. I'll give the link of Bukhari as well in the description. You can check it from there. So let's move ahead. In Bukhari's view, thus Bukhari's view is triumphant, that the triumphant party of Prophet's community does not consist of fighters, but of those men of learning who disseminate the truth and are engaged in propagation of Islam. Very important. Again, in the book of Jihad, Bukhari has several chapters speaking of simple invitation to Islam. So when you open Bukhari, Sahih Bukhari, there is a specific chapter dedicated towards the, you can say, jihad, which totally talks about jihad. That is the 56th chapter. So let's check the headings which are given. So one of the heading is, may the Muslim guide the followers of the book to a right course, or may he teach them the book. Again, this is the heading of, you can check the screenshots which I have attached here. The link is also given here, you can check it for yourself. So this is the Arabic, and this is the, like, to preach the people, preach to the people of this book, or to teach them the holy book. Okay. The another heading is that to pray for their guidance of the polytheists, so as to develop relations of friendship with them. Okay. To invoke Allah to bestow guidance upon the mushrikeen. Again, this is the actual Arabic, you can check the Arabic as well. And another heading which is given, the invitation to the unbelievers by Holy Prophet to Islam and prophethood, and that they may not take for gods other beside than Allah. Okay. The invitation of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to embrace Islam, so that is something which you can check here, like the invitation of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam to the unbelievers, because obviously he'll invite unbelievers to Islam, that is something. And another heading is the excellence of him at whose hands another man accepts Islam, the superiority of the one through whom a man embraces Islam. Another heading of like chapter 144, 143, which is mentioned in the 56th chapter of Sahih Bukhari. This is the headings. Okay. And another heading, the excellence of him who accepts Islam from among the followers of the book, the superiority of the people of scriptures, Jews and Christians who embrace Islam. Another heading is, how should Islam be presented to a child? So what I want you to understand here is that all of these are mentioned in the chapter of Jihad. Okay. One thing which you need to understand is very important, that this is under the book of Jihad of the Bukhari, like a chapter which totally is concerned with Jihad. So there is no like mention of fighting or something like that. As you can understand that the context of jihad is not that which people interpret, which people like say that fighting and like killing of people unjustly and something like that. So as the Prophet's saying, as reported in traditions, contains the additional word yuqatili, as in Abu Dawood chapter number 15, like hadith number 4. So these headings show up. What these headings show that up to the time of Bukhari, the word jihad was used in the wider sense in which it is used in Quran, that the invitation of Islam being looked upon as jihad. Other book of tradition contains similar references. In Abu Dawood, chapter number 15, hadith number 4, quotes under the heading continuity of jihad a tradition to effect that a party of my community will not cease fighting for the truth, and it will be triumphant over its opponents. So this is the particular hadith I'm talking about, Sunan Abi Dawood, hadith number 2484. Okay, this will be given in bio, you can check it for yourself. As you can check the heading as well regarding the continuance of jihad. Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, a section of my community will continue to fight for the right and overcome their opponents till the last of them fights with the antichrist. So technically what I want to say here is that the party of my community will not cease fighting for the truth, and it will be triumphant over its opponents. Okay, so which words are thus explained in On al-Ma'bud, a commentary of Abi Dawood by on the authority of Nawawi, who is another scholar, who says that this party consists of different classes of the faithful, of them being the brave fighters and the faqis, the jurists, the muhaddisun, the collectors of tradition, the zahids, those who abstain from worldly pleasures and devote themselves to the service of Allah, and those who command the doing of good and prohibit evil, and a variety of other people who do other good deeds. Okay, so what we conclude that this only shows that jihad in hadith and traditions include only the service of Islam in any form. Okay, so this is what we conclude from hadith and Quran as well. So let's now see what the use of jihad is given by the jurists. Okay, It is only among the jurists that the word jihad lost its original wider significance and began to be used in a narrower sense of kiral, which means fighting. The reason is not far to seek. The books of jurisprudence, fiqh, codified the Muslim law, and in the classification of the various subjects with which the law dealt, qital or fighting found a necessary place. But invitation to Islam through a primary meaning of the word jihad being a matter of free individual choice did not form part of the law. The jurists who had to deal with qital therefore used the word jihad as synonymous with qital, and by the wider significance of the jihad was lost sight of, though the commentators of Quran accepted the significance when dealing with the verses such as verse number 25 of verse number 25 chapter number 25 verse number 52, which is this which I have written here, that so obey not the disbelievers and strive against them with the Quran, a great striving. Okay, so but that was not the only misuse of the word. Together with this narrowing of the significance of jihad, the further idea was developed that Muslims were to carry on war against unbelieving nations and countries, whether they were attacked or not, which is an idea which is quite foreign to the Quran. So by this, I think we have explained completely that what is the correct meaning of jihad according to the Quran and Hadith and the correct traditions. And in this part, which was our today's video, this was the main objective to clarify the concept of jihad as per Quran and Hadith. So in the upcoming parts, in the upcoming videos, we'll also talk about the circumstances under which the war was permitted. The wrong notion of jihad will refute the misinterpreted Quranic verses which people misinterpret. Will take those and refute the misinterpretations. And then in the final part, we'll also discuss about the directions which are related to war. In which we'll also discuss how Islam abolished slavery. There are other topics as well which are concerned regarding jihad, which are also part of jihad, which people often talk about when they discuss jihad, like punishment for apostasy, and are Muslims commanded to force non-Muslims to accept Islam. So regarding these topics, we have already discussed them. We have already discussed them in thorough in our previous episodes. As you can see here, are Muslims commanded to force non-Muslims to embrace Islam, and no punishment for apostasy in Islam. We have dedicated a whole series on this. First we defined what is apostasy, then we defined what is the ruling of Islam on apostasy, like what was the punishment of apostasy in other religions, then how Islam came and how it said that there is no punishment for apostasy in Islam, both proved from Hadith and Quran as well. And yeah, I think that should be it for today's video, and I hope I was able to explain you what was the correct meaning of jihad from Quran and Hadith. So Jazakallah
Yes.
khair. That's it.
Yeah. It's taken an hour, and we looked at the use of the word jihad in the Holy Quran, in the Hadith, in lexicons of Arabic language, to show that what has happened is that the word has been hijacked by some people who want to use it for political purposes, both Muslim and non-Muslim. Muslims want to use it to incite the masses to say they should be attacking non-Muslims, and non-Muslims want to use it to show Islam in a poor light and say, look, every Muslim is required to pick up the sword and kill all those around him who do not embrace Islam. So we've had our hour, and we are grateful. We should be thankful that we belong to the Lahore Ahmadiyya movement, which follows Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. And through his teaching and that of Hazrat Maulana Muhammad Ali and so on, we've been striving to put to people the correct interpretation, the real spirit of Islam, without any political acts to bribe. And with that and with the prayer that whoever you are and wherever you may be, regardless of your religion or sect or nationality or caste or creed or color, may Allah keep the whole of humanity safe and sound, particularly our brothers and sisters in Gaza, in West Bank, who are suffering what can only be described as a genocide. But please also pray for the Zionists, that Allah may open their hearts and minds to seeing that the way ahead lies in peace and love, and not in disharmony and fighting and killing and torture of people. And with that, I take my leave of you. Assalamu alaikum, Khuda Hafiz,
Assalamu
and
alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Allah Hafiz.
until next Sunday at the same time.